Today we'll be discussing all of the elements to creating an incredible fictional world and how to bring it to life on the page. So first of all, when it comes to developing a really good fictional world, it's important to know your genre. Understand the main genres and subgenres that you want to focus on throughout your story. For example, if you're creating a story with science fiction, then your world will obviously have a lot more scientific elements. Whereas if you're creating a story in the fantasy genre, you're going to have a lot more magical and whimsical elements. Think about when looking at your genre, what sort of elements really affect the development of your world. If your world is more science-based, then a lot of your world would revolve around technology and using technology in the characters' daily lives. Whereas if you're creating a world more in the fantasy genre or a world with a great focus on the supernatural, then your world may focus more on being run or daily life may revolve around magic. And so this is something you also need to consider when you are coming up with the genres and thinking about how those genres really affect the world that you want to create. Now number 2, research other fictional worlds that you like. There may be other fictional worlds that you really enjoy in other manga, comics, light novels, or anime or movies. Think about these fictional worlds that you really enjoy and make note of what you really like about these fictional worlds. This can really help you to know what elements you enjoy in other stories and how those elements may be used as inspiration in you creating your own worlds. For example, if you like a certain type of technology in a scientific fictional world, then you may like to think about how you could use that as inspiration when creating the technology in your world. Or if you like a certain magical technique in another fantasy world, then that may be something that you want to use for inspiration in your storytelling. Number 3, develop a map for your world. The best way to use this technique is to first write down the most significant and important locations in your story. Make note of all of these locations and then craft a map and put these locations onto the map to give you a better idea of where these locations are. This will really help you when it comes to writing your story because rather than keeping all of this information in your mind, you can then have a reference that you can keep referring to as you create your manga or light novel. And this can be very helpful, especially if you have many different locations. Knowing where these locations are and the distance from each other and the other surroundings around them can really help when it comes to describing those locations or presenting them through artwork. Number 4, create a collection of images that really inspire you. Gather lots of different images that can help to build your inspiration as you create your story. Pinterest might be a really good tool for this, but you could also just gather images and put them into a collage on your computer or just save them to your computer in general. But I always find that when it comes to world building, having a collection of different images can really help to give me inspiration when I need it the most. I might refer to an image and think about how that image could relate to the fictional world that I want to create. And so this technique may help you as well when it comes to creating a fictional world. If you're more artistic, you may also prefer to draw sketches when you are gaining inspiration. So as an artist, you may like to gather many different sketches and keep all of those sketches in a folder with different labels to help you understand which part of your fictional world these sketches are referring to. Whichever method you prefer, keeping a collection of images is always good when you need to get that creative spark. Number 5, build a timeline and history. It's important to know the history of your fictional world as you create it. You need to consider what events happened in the past in this world, which helped shape it into the world that it is today. To do this, you may wish to write down some main significant events in your fictional world and then create a timeline. On your timeline, you may want to break it down into eras and think about how many years you want to have your timeline stretch on for, and then write down the most significant and key elements that have occurred in the history of your world and write these down on the timeline. This will really help you when it comes to crafting your fictional world because you can then refer to your timeline and think about all of the events that have occurred leading up to this point. And then when you're creating newer things in the main timeline of your story, you can think about how the elements in the past of your world have really affected those buildings or structures or the landscape of your world. Now, number 6, you want to also develop unique characters. Consider if there are unique characters within your world, not just the human characters. You may want to gain inspiration from already existing fantasy characters like elves or fairies or goblins, or you may wish to create your own fantasy character types. One great way to be able to create unique fantasy characters is to look at already existing fantasy or mythology characters and then think about how you can combine certain elements to creating your own unique characters. You can also gain inspiration from looking at animals and considering how those animals have developed as they do to survive. Think about, for example, animals that live near water and how they manage to survive in a watery environment, or animals that fly and how their bodies are developed in order to be suitable for flying. Considering these elements and thinking about how animals suit the environment they live in can help you to consider how to also apply that technique to characters you create as well. Whether your world is scientific or magic based, think about how your characters could be developed in order to really suit the world they are living in. On that note, number 7, consider the climate and ecosystems. Consider the various types of ecosystems that may exist in your world, which would be the home to different character types, animals, or plant species. To do this, it can be helpful to consider the ecosystems we have, like rainforests or Arctic regions, deserts, things like that. So really consider what kind of ecosystems we have and how that could apply to your world. This may also really help you when you're developing your map. If you are creating ecosystems, you could try coloring your map to match the color of the ecosystems you're creating, and this can help you to keep it in mind as you continue to create your fictional world. As you create your ecosystems, consider the types of unique plants and animals that would also make that ecosystem their home. Also consider the balance of that ecosystem and how the animals and the plants and the characters in that ecosystem would all work in a cycle in order to survive and live their daily lives. Number 8 is develop unique animals and plants. Consider unique animals or plants that may exist in your fictional world. Whether you're creating a science-based world or a magic-based world, there will likely be many unique animals and plants that exist within this location. The best way to develop unique animals and plant life is to really consider the animals and plants we have here and how they have evolved to be able to suit their location. Think about how certain animals have adapted to survive and how certain plants also really suit their location. For example, cactuses in deserts where there may not be a whole lot of water are able to store the water when they need it. So think about things like that when you are developing the plants and animal life in your story. Number 9, build towns and cities that make sense for your world. The towns and cities are where the main characters would live in your story, and so building towns and cities that make sense for your world is going to help your world feel more realistic and believable. I think a really good example of this is in Morrowind, where in Alderaan they have the Manor District in the big shell of the Scar Crab. I think that's very creative, and it also suits the desert region that it takes place in as well. And then of course in Morrowind as well, when you have the Telvanni wizards, they build their homes out of mushrooms, and that also really suits that particular location that they're living in. So when you are building towns and cities in your world, consider the main location where this town or city is placed, and think about how you can create unique structures that make sense for that world. You may not necessarily need to make buildings that are like our buildings. It all comes down to what kind of materials are in your world, where they would gather those materials. So in your world, they may not have things that can be used to make bricks. They may instead make their houses out of mushrooms as well. Or they may have other materials like different grasses or bamboo or things like that that they can use in order to build their houses. So think about what is accessible to your characters in that world, and then how they would use those materials to make unique structures, and that will help you to create buildings and cities that really make sense for your world. Now number 10, imagine what daily life would be like in this world. In order to make your world building feel even more realistic and believable to your audience, consider what daily life would be like for the characters in this world. As they go about their daily life, think about their normal routine. What would their jobs be like? Where would they go? Who would they talk to? Think about all of these elements to make your world feel more realistic and natural. As mentioned before, think about when it comes to materials and supplies and food, think about where they would be getting these things. It's unlikely that they would have the same food and materials that we would have. They would likely have more unique things. So when they are gathering these materials, where are they getting them from? What kinds of plants or animals are they working with in order to live their daily lives? Really think about this as you craft your fictional world. Some other important things to think about are things like currency, the education, certain jobs that would be unique to your world. Think about cultures or traditions with different character types. Think about leisure activities or hobbies. And also think about politics as well. Maybe there's certain disagreements between different character types, for example. So whatever it is, think about these little elements and what it really would be like to live in this character's world, in their day-to-day lives. And once you start considering these elements, you can build a fictional world that feels much more realistic and believable. Number 12, allow your character to explore this world throughout the story. So when you are creating a fictional world, it's important that you give your character opportunities to traverse this world throughout the story. They may be looking for something on their journey, or they may be trying to find someone or something, and so this prompts them to continue on their journey. So really consider the different locations your character will need to visit throughout their journey, and make these locations feel unique and distinct from each other. That is when your world building will really shine, when your character is able to explore this world through the story itself, and it really can help your audience to feel like they are going on the journey along with your character. Number 13 is just something to keep in mind when you're writing your book. Readers are experiencing your world for the first time. They aren't you, they're not the writer, they are the one who is experiencing the world. And I think as writers, it is very difficult to keep this in mind. As writers, we already know all the elements of the world, we understand it. After all, we're the one who created it. But your readers are the ones who are experiencing this world for the first time. Elements that make sense to you as the writer may not make sense to your audience, because you have kept these elements in your mind, but you might not have put them in the story or in the world building yet. So as you create your story, keep in mind that your readers are experiencing this world for the first time. So make sure that important and key elements of the world are shown throughout your story, through your characters living their daily lives or experiencing different things. And this will help your audience to be able to see these elements as they read the story and begin to learn about this world as much as you do. And just as a final tip, number 14, avoid adding too much world building all at once. I know we just said that it's important for your readers to understand your world, but if you introduce them to too many elements of your world all at once, it may feel really overwhelming. So instead of having a really long description about your world, try breaking down these elements into the story itself. Try thinking about, because, for example, your character is living their daily life. They wouldn't suddenly stop and go, oh, here is this building. Here's all of this information about this building. They see this building every day, so they're not going to stop and give a long description about this building. Instead, they will simply go into the building and go about their daily lives. And that is how the world should be introduced, through your character experiencing a normal day in their life. Because this is their life, but your audience is also experiencing their life for the first time through the eyes of your character. And that is something very important to keep in mind when it comes to developing a really good fictional world. I hope that the tips in this video helped you to begin to shape the fictional world in your story. If you want to learn more about creating an incredible fictional world, I have a course available on my website. It's called World Building Mastery Course. It's available in a PDF workbook where there's various exercises and prompts which you can fill out within the workbook itself and create your world along with the guide. It's a really fantastic way to be able to bring your fictional world to life. It's got so many different chapters all about every element of creating a fictional world. So if you want to level up your fictional world today, make sure to check it out on my website, link in the description box down below. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of fictional worlds you're creating, because I would love to hear about them, and I'm sure other people would love to hear about them too. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!